Between 2023 and 2025, more than 60% of new fast food expansions left American soil behind. Entire states, places where generations were raised on drive-through diners and weekend burgers, now see shuttered windows and empty parking lots. Brands we trusted like Starbucks, Wendy's, McDonald's shifting their gaze to a friendlier nation, once close to our heart, now slowly becoming the new favorite, one by one. The places that fed our families are crossing out American towns from the map, and when even your last affordable meal vanishes, what part of American promises are still trustworthy for us? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today, we revealed the 10 fast food chains. Quietly shift production out of the US. Let's check if the store is still in your neighborhood or not. Number 1. Subway. There was a time when Eat Fresh was more than just a slogan. It was a promise you could find on nearly every street in America. Now, it's vanishing. It's quietly, painfully, without warning. From 2023 to early 2025, more than 1,000 Subway restaurants have closed across the United States, once the most visible food chain in the nation, even outnumbering McDonald's at its peak. Subway is fading from towns that depended on it not for luxury, but for survival. Meanwhile, in Canada, the green and yellow logo is blooming again. Store count is up 12%, and over 200 new locations are on the horizon for this year alone. For millions of working-class Americans, Subway wasn't just a sandwich shop. It was the only affordable place that felt even slightly healthy. It wasn't greasy, it wasn't fried, it wasn't a salad that cost $14. It was vegetables, meat, and bread assembled in front of you, tailored to your day. Truckers on the highway grabbed footlongs to keep moving. Kids split a sub after school. Older folks stretched a 6-inch sandwich into dinner. Not perfect, but good enough. In 2016, Subway had more than 23,000 locations in the US today. That number has plummeted to around 17,000. In small towns, those few remaining stores are shutting their doors, one by one leaving behind nothing but paper-covered windows and dust in the corners. Meanwhile, Subway Canada hasn't closed a single location in over a year. Profit per store rose over 14% in 2024. Why franchisees there get 2 years of tax relief and direct marketing support from their cities, something almost unheard of in the US now. Canadian stores benefit from stable logistics, locally grown produce, and government efforts to keep food chains strong. But in America, it's a different story. Cold cuts, lettuce, tomatoes, and bread, all staples, have jumped nearly 30% in price since 2022. Legal troubles over meat quality have chased away customers, and after Subway was acquired by Rourke Capital, priorities shifted. Global markets took center stage. US. Franchises were left with slashed corporate support, trying to stay afloat on their own. In rural towns, Subway was often the only under $10 meal that didn't feel like it would clog your arteries. Now, residents are left with gas station snacks, fast food chains, or simply skipping meals. For diabetics, for workers on the go, for families watching every dollar, it wasn't just food, it was health, it was time, it was control. And when those same families look north and see new Subways opening in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, the message becomes clear: the future isn't here, it's elsewhere. So when even the most basic, balanced meal quietly walks away from American soil, what kind of nourishment are we truly left with? Number 2, Wendy's. In a land that once promised value for every hard-earned dollar, why even the most American traditional chain like Wendy's also turns off the lights and walks away from the people who raised it. Once the pride of Ohio, Wendy's used to be a place where families gathered, teenagers got their first job, and where the $4 combo meant you could still eat comfortably even when your wallet felt light. That square burger, the signature Frosty, and the feel of a warm booth after a long shift. It all meant deeper than just food, but a sense of belonging, and somebody called it home. But today, across the whole country and especially towns in Michigan, Wendy's signs are coming down. Locations sit abandoned, covered in dust and old memories. That even hurts more to know just across the border. Wendy's is exploding with over 50 new stores opening in Canada this year alone under a new slogan, bringing real meals north. Many can't help but feel like they have been left behind. According to their latest investor reports, Only 13% of new development funds are being spent in the US, compared to 63% being pumped into Canada, and it's not hard to see why. Canada's new business-friendly tax policies offer a 3-year commercial tax break for foreign food chains. That's a savings of nearly $400,000 per store. And we have to bitterly admit that's a great deal compared to our homeland. Labor costs are rising faster in the US too, up 27% since 2022. Meanwhile, Canada's rate has only climbed 9.4%. Add in lawsuits in states like Georgia and Arkansas for labor violations, and you get a recipe for retreat. For executives, this is called market strategy, but it's not a real thing for the US citizens. For everyday Americans, the situation just feels like abandonment, and the cut is deep because those people are doing absolutely nothing wrong. So why do they have to be a part of a crisis that they never asked for in places like rural Missouri and southern Iowa? Wendy's used to be the closest thing to a sit-down meal people could afford. Now, they're driving 30 or 40 miles to find a burger. Or they're left choosing between gas station pizza and a $15 sandwich from Shake Shack. The warmth and the reliability they have been promised are all slipping away when the Frosty machine isn't humming anymore. The $4 meal can't help but become a part of history, and the quiet comfort that someone out there still cared about working Americans. That's fading too. So when even Wendy's decides you're no longer worth the cost. What's left to hold on to in the future? Number 3, Starbucks. Picture stepping out for your familiar morning cup, only to find the green siren gone, windows boarded, and a for lease sign where the churn of coffee machines once felt welcoming. In early 2025, over 120 Starbucks locations quietly closed their doors across America, from Portland to Philadelphia, even in San Francisco, where busy mornings used to start with familiar aromas and first sips. But the real heartbreak's Seattle, the very birthplace of Starbucks. The place where the green siren first became a symbol of comfort and connection, now home to shuttered stores and silence. And while the US watched familiar windows go dark, Starbucks unveiled a bold new campaign across Canada, Brewing North, with plans to open 140 brand new stores there by year's end. This isn't just a business pivot. For Gen Xers and Boomers, Starbucks was never only about caffeine, it was a space, a shared pause in the rush of life. That cozy table in the corner meant a quiet start before work or a Sunday morning with your kids. The comfort of that same taste, day after day, grounded people in routine when the world felt too fast. But now, all that's left in those neighborhoods are papered up windows and for lease signs where memories used to sit. According to Starbucks' Q1 2025 financial report, the company funneled $75 million into Canadian expansion, while investment in the US dipped below $9 million, the lowest since 2013. Canada now boasts over 1,660 stores, a sharp 11.5% increase. Meanwhile, the US store count fell by over 8%. Vancouver, according to Bloomberg, is 21% cheaper to operate in than Los Angeles, because it's no longer just about selling lattes. Canada is offering 3-year tax exemptions for food and beverage chains opening in recovery zones. Meanwhile, in US cities, commercial rents have soared 18%, and insurance costs have skyrocketed due to rising theft and workplace incidents. In March 2025, Starbucks closed 16 American stores just to protect its staff. And so, for millions of working Americans, the last place that felt both affordable and human is slipping away. That same tall coffee that used to cost under $4 now rings in at $7.50 for seniors in low-income areas. A warm drink now comes from a vending machine. No barista, no smile, no moment of pause, if even Starbucks. The second living room of middle-class America chooses to build its future somewhere else. What does that mean for the rest of us who still call this place home? A cup of coffee can vanish this quietly and quickly. Imagine what happens when it's your next meal. Number 4, McDonald's. They didn't say goodbye, they just started leaving. One closed door at a time. In the first 6 months of 2025 alone, more than 170 McDonald's locations across the United States went dark. No farewell, just empty parking lots where golden arches once glowed through the foggy morning. Meanwhile, across the border, 7 brand new McDonald's opened in Canada, with whispers of dozens more on the way. It's not a rumor. McDonald's, once the beating heart of American towns and highways, is quietly investing its future elsewhere, to older Americans. This shift feels unreal. For generations, McDonald's was more than a meal, but a rhythm of life. The happy meal after Little League, a cheeseburger reward after a tough day at school, the warm, familiar stop during long drives across state lines. In 2014, there were more than 14,300 McDonald's across the U.S. By mid-2025, that number had slipped below 12,000 and falling. The need for fast, affordable meals hasn't changed, but McDonald's has. According to the company's Q1 2025 financial filing, over $65 million has been rerouted into Canadian expansion, more than all U.S. reinvestment combined, marking a sharp first in over 20 years. American franchisees are reporting severe challenges. Labor costs have surged, utility prices in key states are up 30%, and supply chain disruptions continue to ripple from coast to coast. Meanwhile, Canadian provinces like Alberta offer electricity rebates, lower tax rates, and more stable labor laws, making the Great North feel like safer ground. But behind all these numbers are real lives, real people. Each shuttered McDonald's means the loss of 40 to 60 jobs, many of them belonging to older Americans padding their retirement checks, or teens scraping together savings for community college. It also means something else is lost: a dependable $5 meal, a familiar booth, a small routine that made life feel stable when everything else felt uncertain. There's been no official press release saying McDonald's is leaving America, but the signs are showing. New hiring posters in Calgary, for lease signs in places like Akron and Tulsa. Quiet, but unmistakable. Not just a geographic shift, it's a shift in loyalty. So what does it mean when even McDonald's, the brand that once represented America's middle-class identity, starts moving out? It's not just about burgers anymore. It's about who still counts in the eyes of a company we thought would never walk away. Number 5. Domino's Pizza. What does it say when even the fastest, most dependable slice of comfort becomes too far to reach? On a Friday night in Des Moines, Iowa, there was a rhythm: tired parents pulling into the driveway, kids jumping on the couch, and one simple tap on the Domino's app. Within half an hour, a hot, cheesy pizza would arrive at the door, affordable, easy, and part of the American routine. But by 2025, that tap delivers heartbreak. Delivery unavailable in your location. In Des Moines, all 8 Domino's locations have shut down. Meanwhile, across Canada, in Alberta, Manitoba, and Toronto, 15 new Domino's stores have opened in just 1 year. Domino's wasn't just pizza, it was Friday night peace. It was dinner after a brutal double shift. It was a small reward for a child with a gold star on a spelling test. In the early 2010s, their 30-minute delivery became a national promise. By 2025, that promise has broken, especially across working-class towns in the Midwest and South. According to Domino's 2024 financial report, nearly 170 stores in the U.S. quietly closed in just 18 months. Most were in forgotten zones, border towns in Texas, isolated corners of Appalachia, and mid-sized Midwest cities. Technomic reports that Canada now has over 600 Domino's locations, up 23% year over year. Why the boom? North Logistics. Domino's International CEO explained that Canada offers a streamlined supply model, where supply chain costs are 17% lower than in the US, but deeper currents are at play. Cheese prices critical to pizza have spiked over 32% in the US since 2022. Canada, thanks to strict dairy import controls, saves nearly 9% per pizza. Food inspection fees in New York, California, and Illinois rose up to 14% by late 2023. Canada, in contrast, waived these fees for 2 full years, and in the US, delivery drivers are disappearing. Gas prices, insurance, and wage shortages have pushed average delivery time to 47 minutes. In Canada, just 26. For many small towns, Domino's was the only app-based, under $10 meal left. With its exit, families must now rely on unreliable local spots, microwave meals, or nothing at all. For the elderly, for those without transportation, Domino's had been the last warm plate they could count on. And so, as Domino's packs up, another piece of affordable American life vanishes into silence. If you've already watched your local Walmart market and Subway disappear, You know this pain too well. Number 6. Pizza Hut. You used to spot it from a mile away, the red roof, the glowing sign, the promise of a booth and a hot slice waiting inside. But now, in towns across Missouri, Georgia, and Utah, those signs are coming down quietly, painfully leaving behind hollow buildings and faded childhood memories. By late 2025, Pizza Hut will have opened 70 new dine-in restaurants in Canada, many in Ontario, Alberta, and Quebec. Not new investments, but redirected ones funds pulled silently from the United States, where over 300 Pizza Huts have shut down or been converted into bare-bones takeout counters. This isn't just about pizza. For decades, Pizza Hut was woven into the American rhythm. It was where dads were celebrated, where kids turned birthdays into pizza parties, where a C average still earned a slice and soda under warm yellow lights. The all-you-can-eat lunch buffet felt like luxury on a tight budget, a sweet spot between joy and affordability. A middle-class sanctuary, but that sanctuary is vanishing. Restaurant Dive reports Canada has doubled its dine-in Pizza Hut presence, while the US division struggles. Yum Brand's 2024 report shows Pizza Hut Canada's revenue surged 21%, bolstered by local government programs like Downtown Revitalization, which slashed commercial taxes by 60%. The US, in contrast, offers no such safety net. Online orders dropped 11%. Rent costs rose 17%, and turnover hit a brutal 29%, pushing over 100 American locations to give up their licenses by early 2025. Ingredient costs sealed the wound. In the US, wheat, oil, and cheese are up by double digits. Canada, sourcing wheat from Saskatchewan and cheese from Saputo under national contracts, keeps costs down 15 to 20%. The final blow, a 2023 scandal accusing Pizza Hut US of quietly shrinking pizza sizes, destroying what little trust was left, with dine-in dying. Pizza Hut America turned to delivery only to be outpaced by Domino's and Papa John's. Meanwhile, Canada balanced both, becoming a full-service family brand again, for many Americans, especially retirees, students, and working-class families without full kitchens. Pizza Hut was more than dinner. It was warmth. It was gathering. It was stability. Now, those same families reach into freezer aisles for a cheaper imitation of what once felt like a real meal. And when they see Canada turning Pizza Hut into a symbol of community revival while their own towns are left behind, the silence stings. A single pizza may not rebuild a nation, but when the booths disappear and the red roof fades into memory, something deeper leaves with it. What's left of connection, when even pizza leaves number 7, Popeyes. The crackle of golden fried chicken, once a soundtrack to Southern Sundays, now echoes more often through the streets of Ottawa than New Orleans. By 2025, every Popeyes in Maine had gone dark. Not closed with warning, just gone. Meanwhile, in Canada's capital, a city that had 0 Popeyes just a year earlier, 5 new locations sprang to life in only 6 months. Today, if you're craving that spicy crunch, crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, you might have better luck heading north than finding it in your own hometown. For working-class Americans, Popeyes wasn't just about fast food, it was comfort. It was the $19.99 family combo, hot, hearty, and enough to go around. It was the taste of Louisiana in places far from home, and often. It was the only warm meal available after a late shift. The box came greasy and glowing, but inside it held something else: familiarity. But now, that box is becoming a memory. Restaurant Brands International's Q1 2025 report revealed that Popeyes Canada's revenue jumped 28%, leaving KFC and Swiss Chalet behind in the fried chicken race. In contrast, 94 Popeyes locations in the US shut their doors in just 14 months, especially across struggling states like Mississippi, West Virginia, and Alabama. Why the shift? Money and trust. RBI slashed 40% of its U.S. expansion budget while pledging $65 million toward Canada, citing higher profit margins up to 22% more and a steadier supply chain. Canada supports its restaurants with subsidies on cooking oil, while U.S. frying costs have soared 36% since 2022. Labor unrest in Texas and Louisiana over wage transparency pushed staff to walk away, And worst of all, the signature Cajun spice mix couldn't even reach all US stores due to distribution breakdowns, while Canada secured a European import deal to keep its shelves full. Then came the scandal. In late 2024, Popeyes US was accused of quietly downgrading chicken quality to cut corners. For many longtime customers, that was the final straw. For older Southerners, for Black communities, for first-generation immigrant families, Popeyes was more than just fried chicken. It was flavor, memory, identity. It was the bite that felt like home, but with closures spreading across border towns and lower-income areas. Even that simple connection is slipping away. Now, a drumstick from Popeyes feels like a relic, something affordable no longer, something familiar no more. And when even the flavor of your region, the dish tied to your culture, gets packed up and shipped across a border for higher profits. How do you hold on to your past? Number 8, Burger King. There was a time when the Whopper wasn't just a sandwich, it was a symbol. A warm, messy, familiar bite of American life. But in 2025, the home of the Whopper seems to have packed its bags and moved north. Burger King opened 42 new locations across Canada this year, while quietly closing nearly 120 restaurants in the US, entire stretches of Florida, Texas, and Illinois states that once proudly called themselves Whopper Kingdoms have gone dark. And in the place where the brand was born, Miami investment has dried up. Meanwhile, Toronto gleams with new BK banners and ribbon cuttings. For decades, Burger King stood beside American families. For the long-haul driver, it was a hot lunch on the road. For night shift workers, it was comfort food at 11 p.m. For parents on Sunday drives, it was the treat that made the day feel special. In 2010, there were more than 7,200 Burger King locations across the U.S., representing almost 80% of the chain's global presence. Now that number is barely above 5,300. In states like Indiana, Missouri, and South Dakota, families now drive 50 miles or more without spotting a single Burger King. The red and yellow sign that once lit up the corner of every small town, gone. Restaurant Brands International's Q1 2025 report explains the shift. Capital investment in Canada rose 42%, while development funding in the US dropped 28%. Canada offers lower electricity costs, business-friendly tax relief, and fewer staffing shortages. Meanwhile, kitchen equipment maintenance in US stores now costs 31% more due to supply chain breakdowns and missing parts. It's not just a strategic move, it's a structural collapse. Then came the 2023 internal scandal, a blow to Burger King US's finances that led to deep cost-cutting and mass closures in working-class regions. Management shortages crippled operations. And slowly, the brand's American footprint began to shrink. In contrast, Burger King Canada tapped into Tim Hortons and Popeye's supply networks, slashing ingredient costs by 18%. They found stability. The US became an expensive gamble. Now, for ordinary Americans, the Whopper is slipping out of reach. Combos that once cost $6 or $7 now go for $11 if the store hasn't already closed. For seniors without smartphones, for people without a car, for anyone living paycheck to paycheck, Burger King is no longer within reach, not physically and not financially. Other chains like Culver's, Sonic, and In-N-Out still stand by the American roadside, but Burger King's retreat stings deeper because of what it used to represent. When profit decides who gets served and who gets shut out, what happens to the people who never walked away? And if you're still hoping some brands will stay loyal to the working class, keep watching A&W, the next big name quietly rolling across the border. Number 9, A&W restaurants. W. How do you watch a piece of American history quietly cross the border and wonder if it'll ever come back? A&W was born in California in 1919. Root beer floats, drive-in car hops on roller skates, and family dinners after church made it a staple of small-town life. But now, more than a century later, the brand seems to have found its true home, not in the US, but in Canada. In 2025, the city of Saskatoon alone celebrated the opening of its 1,100th A&W location. That's more than entire US states combined. Meanwhile, fewer than 500 A&W restaurants remain in operation across all of America. For older Americans, the loss feels personal. A&W was where truckers grabbed a burger on the highway, where families shared onion rings in red booths, where you could count on a meal that didn't cost a fortune or demand a smartphone app. But now, in states like Iowa, Arizona, and Ohio, that brown and orange sign has gone dark, vanishing from dozens of communities where it once stood proud. Between 2023 and 2025, A&W Canada opened more than 150 new locations. Its 2024 revenue rose nearly 15%, setting profitability records. At the same time, over 60 A&W stores in the US closed their doors quietly and without fanfare. Most American locations are now struggling rural franchises, lacking central support after Yum Brands spun the company off. Without a shared logistics system or coordinated marketing, US A&Ws have been left to fight alone and lose. Meanwhile, Canada gave A&W something America didn't: incentives, tax breaks for hormone-free beef, sustainable packaging, and local sourcing cut costs by over 21%. In contrast, American franchises saw ingredient and labor costs soar nearly 30% between 2022 and 2024. The result: a fractured US. Presence and a thriving Canadian empire. For towns that already lost Dairy Queen, Arby's, and Hardee's, A&W was the final stop. In parts of West Virginia and Wyoming, some now drive over 60 miles just to find a meal under $10 that feels like it belongs to their way of life. Retirees, truckers, night shift workers. They've all lost something small but vital, a place that made them feel seen, a place that reminded them you still matter. So maybe the real question isn't why A&W left. Maybe the question is, who's still fighting to keep the soul of America alive? Number 10. Tim Hortons. In early 2025, a retired man from Buffalo, New York made a quiet confession on local radio. He now drives 20 minutes across the border just for his morning coffee, not for something fancy. Just a regular cup of Tim Hortons. Why? Because the location in his hometown had quietly shut down. That one story captures something much bigger. Across Michigan, Ohio, and upstate New York, places where Tim Hortons once thrived, stores are vanishing. No signs, no headlines, just papered windows and lost routines. Meanwhile, just a few miles north, Canada is opening 5 new Tim Hortons in Ontario alone within only 3 months. They come with free double-doubles, Timbits, and lines out the door. It feels like a celebration. It feels like someone still cares. Tim Hortons was never just a cafe for working-class Americans. It was the antidote to Starbucks, red booths, $1 donuts, real coffee that kept truckers alert, retirees warm, and night shift workers going through the dawn. It wasn't about image, it was about belonging. But by 2024, the shift became undeniable. Over 90% of the brand's expansion budget was redirected to Canada. Only 7% stayed in the US, barely enough to keep the lights on. At least 47 American stores closed that year alone. According to its parent company's filings, Canada now offers Tim Hortons 22% higher profit margins. Why lower business taxes, cheaper energy, and a more stable labor pool? For many low-income and elderly Americans, Tim Hortons had become the last warm place you could walk into. Sit down and order a cup of coffee without pulling out your credit card or a QR code. It was the daily stop that didn't require an app. It was dependable. Now, even that simple comfort has faded. There's a strange kind of heartbreak when the places we once trusted start packing up and moving north. It's not just the food or the logos, it's the memories tied to them. A morning coffee before work, a weekend lunch with grandkids. That feeling of being part of something, of being recognized, however small. Now, those names we grew up seeing on every corner are disappearing, not because we walked away, but because they stopped walking with us. And if this video stirred something in you, even just a flicker, maybe it's time we ask ourselves, what else are we losing while we're busy holding on?